I'm going to be very honest with all of you, it's been a long while since I've done an actual making of or documentary on anything really, when it's just me or whatever, so forgive me if I'm a bit rusty or whatever, but here's my best attempt.
Oh, come on, Logan. Do you think I need to send a signal to get your attention? So, I'm no hero. Yeah, you're right. You're not. You're an X-Man.
The idea for X-Men New Evolution came about when I was maybe about 10, 11 years old or whatever, kind of the same time when I made, or was going to make, or after I made Spider-Man the New Spider-Clone, which was at a very young age and all that, and if I actually did go through with making the film back then, it probably would have turned out exactly the same as New Spider-Clone, which, if you've seen it, then I think you might be a bit relieved that I chose to wait, or whatever, or decided to, whenever I feel like filming it. Thank God it took years later to do.
Whatever you say.
And the idea would always be like, because of the number of X-Men figures I had laying about, because I only had a couple laying about, with like, you know, you've got your Wolverine, your Storm, your Cyclops. That's all that was standing out. Hell, it was even possibly just Cyclops for a long while. And that was a stretch to call him an action figure. But after visiting a couple of marketplaces and all that, you would eventually find like all these little used toys by other owners, and you just take them because, well, you're just relieved or happy to get any other figure and just be happy with it, especially when you were like, I don't know, 12 or 15 years old or whatever, getting figures from the market because you thought it might be cool for film or whatever.
Still as arrogant as ever, Logan. Well, I'm not the one that died 2 times. What the hell did you say? You heard me. You son of a...
Because of the amount of figures that I had access for the film that was going to be full on X-Men, the story I wanted to tell would have to suit those characters specifically. So, if I ever found any other figures, it probably would have been a totally different story, but I wanted to, because in the Spider-Man film, you notice that some stuff has gone down, like characters are in a new state of mind, they look different, they act a little bit differently because of an event that happened. X-Men is no exception to that. Stuff has gone down. The X-Men have been absolutely separated by their own members and all that, and now it's only down to 4 members now, because then at that time I also found a Thunderbird figure and like, oh cool, I remember him from X-Men because I saw him in a picture one time, so he'll be useful. And so it's just a standard, you know, X-Men get stranded in a forest, and they have to try and survive and encounter these threats and beat them.
This is Wolverine. There's a saber-toothed tiger out here, so keep your eyes open. Wait, did he just say there's a saber-toothed tiger here?
The first attempt on filming the movie was not a bad one per se, but it definitely, I'm glad I stopped halfway because I just wasn't feeling it or whatever. It was going to be like the same as my other stop motion films. And yeah, I don't know if I still have that footage laying about. It's basically the same. The set was kind of the same, but otherwise when you see the film now from what it was then, it's totally different because it's a lot more professional than I probably would have made back then, because I actually took time on this film. The opening was totally different. It wasn't like you know, pictures of the X-Men throughout the years. It was literally just like put on the theme song on the TV, or because that's the only way that I knew how to make any openings back then, because editing was still slightly new to me. Get the extra, or get a plane that I had for a stand-in for the extra, and just have it fly across the screen and all that, across a piece of paper I had stuck around all the room with what my job role will be on all that, and then yeah. I actually shot the scene of the X-Jet flying about for the first scene outside, to make it actually look like really outside and all that, and you would actually see the gun before it shoots the X-Jet down.
Hold on!
Then I stopped after getting inside, and then I just left it for a couple of years and did other projects and all that, and here we are now.
Whoa, easy there, bub. I'm not gonna hurt you, okay?
Seeing that this is my first ever stop-motion feature film, not my first stop-motion anything though, my first stop-motion video / anything is my Doctor Who series teaser trailer back in 2015, which was supposed to come out in 2016, but because I couldn't get the figures up all together in time, the series didn't come out. It's still gonna come, but that's a whole different story. With this, it's a full-on stop-motion experience, start to finish, and when you start out, it is pretty fun and all that, and it's pretty cool. But then you run into some of these roadblocks, like if you don't have all the essentials to make a stop motion, then you're gonna run into a lot of roadblocks on it. Like your figures won't stand up straight.
Ah, face plant. There we go. You're my favorite.
You're gonna pose them in a certain way to make it look like they're moving, like walking or trying to punch something or just anything, and then they'll just topple over and all of that. And that can really be annoying and kind of kill your buzz, and like, because at that point, I had to anyway rely on the actual figure just standing on its own weight without any peg holders, glue tack, or thin string that you could hang from anything high up to keep them up or make it look like they're flying, or a display stand which you could put and make it look like they're jumping on, make things a whole lot easier. I don't have access to those things, especially for this film, so that's why it looks really, really dodgy.
Are you okay? I'm pissed! How did he turn into a real saber-tooth tiger?
The actual beginning of the film for making it actually happen was back in 2017/18, with the announcement that would be the first film that would come out that year. The script would have fully begun the script process would have started back in 2018. I posted updates on Twitter to let people know that the script has started, and the script took maybe about a week or two, maybe a month at best, and then by the time it finished and came around to actual filming, because the thing I like to do when I write out my scripts, this isn't really an official way to do it or the real way you should do filmmaking, it's just something I do because it's easier and works for me anyway, but that might change down the road, who knows. It's where you write your normal dialogue, you write your story out, but for like certain scenes, like for movement or actions, or if you can't think of a thing to say, I literally just put down, we'll figure that out while filming it, because I have usually ideas that come to me on the day, or it was actually mostly for the movement and all that. Like for a fight scene, it was like, okay, so Sabretooth and Wolverine are going to have throw down and have a fight to the death or whatever. I'd write down some certain things, like he punches him and he falls to the ground. I'd write down that type of thing, but like otherwise I just say we'll figure that out on the day, because then I could actually be creative and try out the fight throughout the entire process without writing it down and having to find like, oh, I actually can't do that with a type of thing. I probably would do it later down the line, but when that didn't happen, when you didn't write those things, when I didn't write those things down, it did make things a bit difficult, because then like the movement you want to make and all that, it's like it's difficult and all that, because then you really have an idea how it's going to look like, and then you kind of get frustrated when you're in the middle of making an action happen, and then it's like, it doesn't feel like it's coming together. And then I would just find myself like separating myself from the project for a long while, and then like come back kind of refreshed and all that. Because there's a reason why these stop motion movies take a long time, because you take upon hundreds upon thousands of photographs to make this series of actions actually happen and all that, and it can be very frustrating, especially when the figures aren't being cooperative, and when you just have a total brain fart and you don't really know what you want your figures to do or anything like that, like especially for fights. So that definitely took a lot more. Funny enough, filming took a lot longer than the script processing.
Where did these robots come from?
We'll worry about that later. Right now, stay alive.
On top of all that, the reason also why the film took 2.5 years to finish up is because of the thing I just mentioned, but also because during halfway through production, when I was starting back up again, my nan actually passed away last year, and that kind of killed all types of creativity at that point. I was also doing another project at the time with my college friends, a soap opera called Riverside, and it was actually that same day that I was told that she unfortunately had passed away, and it really brings you down and all that, because you have such a good day, and you feel like you've been very productive and very just very happy with just doing something that you love, especially because I love doing filmmaking and I love doing that type of thing. And then like after that, you come home and have your mom come in and say your nan has passed away, and you don't exactly know how to feel at that point. And then like you just have to go away and just deal with that, because there's no way. I know it's an obvious thing to say, but you really can concentrate, really, even more so. Like if you're already because I was kind of struggling with like, okay, how do I want the scene to play out and all that, especially for the fight. Should I have this character do this? Can I make him do this? I can't think through. I'll just leave it up. And the set stayed up for 2.5 years, and the desk was always in use. So it stayed there for a good long time. Finally, like when it finished, I finally managed to clear all the stuff out, and now my computer now sits there. And thankfully, after getting over it, I got right back to work and all that. So yeah, a lot of stuff can happen over a longer period of time for your stop motion project, like personal life and just creative roadblocks. So that's not fun. Just looking over the script right now to find out where I'm at right now to film another scene, because I just put down my script usually like I'll think of something during the fight scene or whatever, but you know, sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Especially with action figures that aren't really made for articulation stop motion stuff. The set building, I'm no artist by any means, like at all. I'm not an artist. The best I could draw was maybe a stick figure or a very wonky looking little person or whatever that looks really, really weird and off-putting. Thankfully, seeing that this wasn't full-on, complete hand-drawn animation or whatever, it was just, I just needed background, so I can kind of do an okay job at drawing maybe like a forest or whatever, or trees or something like that. That took me maybe the same amount of time as making the script, maybe, for like a week. I think the first thing I drew was the grass or just maybe the forest backgrounds. Again, I'm no artist by any means, so that's the best I had. This right here is supposed to be the back exterior of the inner interior of the X-Jet, like on the wall where Thunderbird is, more or less, or someone's going to be behind. I'll figure it out on the day. when it came to actually display the drawings for the backgrounds, the idea was mostly like maybe get the pictures and maybe get some glue tack or whatever and like stick them to some VHSs I had, because they're easy to stand up and all that. Or failing that, just have the VHSs, because I used the Angel VHS box sets to clamp them together from the sides, but then it's like, how do I keep them in the middle as well, because otherwise they're going to just be completely flopping around or whatever. Then I realized that I had these little plastic paper clips sitting about, and they were good standings to keep them displayed and upright.
Alright, set over and done with. Larry's just in front of a PS2.
Ain't that just peachy? So that was a problem solved. And then sometimes, like, if it's not two backgrounds together, it's just one, then you can usually just use those two VHS's box sets to hold them up from the side. But it's a very confined space then. The sets were always very small for some reason. It was very annoying.
It's broken. Yeah, nothing broken, just the jet itself though. Quiet! Let's see how bad it is.
I had an idea in my mind that they would be bigger. I mean, they were big enough, but for like other scenes and all that, they were very small and constricting and all that. Not as bad as I thought it was, but if it was down to like maybe just a single sheet of paper or whatever for the background, then you have to keep that figure literally the center and all that, and try not to show the sides at all. But on occasion you do catch the sides if you look carefully, or just pay attention to the backgrounds. But otherwise, I was surprised at how well they turned out. But hopefully next time the backgrounds will be more creative and more bigger and all that. Especially seeing that I can't really put it in the old location anymore. I have to find a new one.
Another set that didn't take that much work to do, even though I used some of the drawings for the backgrounds. An actual set that could actually be interacted with was a Spider-Man and a Sinister Six playset. That was a good stand-in. It wasn't even going to be in the original movie at first, but it was. I just looked at it and I was like, you know, that actually does work, and I have reused it for a couple of things. If you went back and watched the Unbelievable Spider-Man series, it appears in episode 7 of that show. And it has been reused for a couple other projects as well. So, and it works pretty well as well, because it looks old, it looks dusty a bit in this film, and it doesn't quite look like it belongs in Spider-Man. You would have to look very closely, and there are some shots where you can see like a little spider web like molded into it, and a couple of other things. But otherwise, it's a good stand-in for how the lab originally would look in my head, because I think it would have been just the drawings, or if you were to see more of the lab, it'd be like pictures off the internet or whatever. But it was a good stand-in. Still kind of small, but at least I could do a lot more of it than I did before. So that did save me a little bit, and I was actually really proud of how it turned out. And yeah.
You got lucky, runt. See you soon. No, get back here.
The figures that were used for the film, the two, I'm confident in knowing where they came from. They were Marvel Legends action figures for X-23, the actual figure and the variant figure. They were easy to use for articulation, but for like the standard, the default version of X-23, we didn't want to get the variant, cannot stand for shit. I mean, there's some points in the film where yeah, she can see, you can see her. She's standing on a blue moon or wherever. The wind's in the right direction. She'll all of a sudden stand up straight and not fall down. Otherwise, I literally had to hold her up off screen by like my fingers, or just like whole hand out off screen, just to make it look like she's standing up straight. If it's not through the pictures, because then it doesn't matter, because it's just like one shot, there you go, it looks like she's standing up straight. Because at some points in the film there is actual video recording, because there are some things that I could not really do with the figures and all that, so I had to use video. It's like, okay, I have to be very careful not to show my fingers or hands or whatever at those points. But otherwise, she was a pretty decent action figure to use, especially for articulation. She responded pretty well. It's just a matter of making her stand up properly. So yeah, she was actually pretty responsive. It's just keeping her upright. That's the only issue. The other X-23 one probably worse than the other X-23, because while the other one, like, it's a bit stiff near the feet, but if you move it hard enough, you can move it again without the risk of breaking it. But the other one, it doesn't move at all on the left side of her foot. I don't know why it doesn't move. I'm frightened to move it too hard where it just breaks completely. So I might have to get a new figure of X-23 for that variant, or altogether get new X-23 figures all together, so they respond easier or something like that. But she did look very cool, but the same thing with the last one, she can't really stand on her own, and that's why there's not much articulation seen by her. But it's responsive, it is responsive, it's just not, it's like half of her is not for some reason, and that does definitely put a damper on some of the scenes. Fortunately, she was only used for like the final third of the film and all that, so there wasn't like a total annoyance or setback. It was only like for a couple of scenes that she was in. I have a feeling I might have to bring her back at some point because, you know. Wolverine, I'm guessing he's a Marvel Legends figure. If not, then he's probably from the X-Men 1 or X2 X-Men United action figure line. I think he may have came with a motorcycle and his own claws. If not, then he's literally just a clawless Wolverine with a motorcycle. I think I got him without the motorcycle from the marketplace. He was actually the most easy action figure I managed to get anything out of his movement, out of his posing, out of his look, because he did look pretty cool. It's about up in the face. It does kind of look a bit dodgy because it doesn't really look like Hugh Jackman. I mean, if it does, then it's a dodgy Hugh Jackman. But it was the most responsive and reliable action figure that I worked with through the entire film. He does have some occasion where like he doesn't stand up straight or whatever, but otherwise he's the best one. I can probably find it easier to display him with like other Marvel Legends figures or any other figures for that matter with good articulation. So very cool, very useful.
I'm going to enjoy beating some sense into you. Thunderbird, stand down! Back off, Cyclops.
Thunderbird is possibly surprisingly the second easiest figure to work with, and that's a stretch because otherwise probably going to be the third if I got the right stuff to make X-23 work properly. For the articulation that he had, because he's not a full-on action figure, I think he's a Burger King toy. He only has a limited articulation. He can move his head, his arm, his waist, and his leg. And his legs. That's about all you can get out of him. But for what it's worth, it is pretty good for what it is. And plus, he does look pretty cool as well. Even though not many people know who Thunderbird is. He was like a character that appeared in the first issue of Giant Size X-Men. And appeared for maybe a couple more issues and then was killed off. in the second adventure or something like that, and then Count Nefaria or something like that. I had to, again, for the characters I had no idea about, because Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, those are basics. I know pretty much enough about them. X-23, okay, maybe you need to brush up on that. Thunderbird, I knew jack shit about. I knew that he died, but like otherwise as a character, because he was gonna go a certain way for me for the film. Like he was gonna be that asshole or whatever, that hard person to work with, and very aggressive against his own teammates. I was like, oh wait, is that actually what he's like in the comic books, or is he kind of more chill or whatever? So when I got my hands on the Ultimate X-Men guide, and maybe a couple more research on Wikipedia or whatever, there was a section in there where it showed what his character was like. I was, oh, his character is that much of a douche, I can make that work for the film. And it has a detail on how he died and all that, and it's got a ton of other stuff in there. If you're an X-Men fan, definitely go get the Ultimate Guide, you know, until they release a new thing, now that the X-Men are back with Marvel and now with Disney. So yeah, that book was really useful when it came to getting to know characters more, especially Thunderbird mostly, because I didn't want to always go to the internet, even though I had to on some occasion to make sure that things were correct and all that. But as for the figure, very, very useful. Still kind of frustrating in some parts because he can't do everything. Like, you can't really get some cool dynamic poses out of him. But for what it's worth, he was very cooperative for the figure that he was.
Short little prick.
For the Wolverine figure as well, he hasn't got any claws on him. Like, I'm pretty sure he did at one point or whatever, but for some reason when I bought him, there was no claws on him. So, for standing, I had to use my other Wolverine figure I had for a long, long time, and probably would have been the main Wolverine figure I used for the entire film, where it was another Burger King toy, where it was just a very messed up face, which would work and all that, because, you know, Battlestar Wolverine, who doesn't love a Battlestar Wolverine? And he was the only one I had with claws until much, much later, when my mom got me a Wolverine figure with him kind of in the standard Wolverine attire, with the mask, the yellow, the stripe and all that. But it was kind of like an updated one, kind of looked like a Wolverine that would go deep sea diving or whatever, but he had claws and all of that, but he wasn't the right Wolverine for the film I wanted for, the film I was using him for, so he wasn't used, so I just was ordered to the Burger King one, which, again, for the articulation that he had, which is kind of less than the Thunderbird one, it's still pretty good. But if I were to find another Wolverine with that exact same outfit with claws, then that might have been way more easier to use and maybe less noticeable. Very, very low, not noticeable. With this one, it is noticeable.
Storm, help me!
Storm is probably is another Burger King toy or McDonald's toy. It's definitely something you get with your kids' meal or whatever. Also found in the market alongside a lot of other action figures that I got. Has only one gimmick, and that's just moving her arms up and down. Otherwise she does not have much movement at all on her leg. Looks like it's about to break off or whatever, but so far, for the longest time I've had it, for like maybe 5 years, it has not broken off yet, so thank the Lord. But you've seen that she hasn't got that much articulation, she can't really do much other than maybe just, you know, adding the effect of, oh, she's using wind powers to blow people away, or her eyes have gone white and now she's calling down lightning. That's the only thing that she can be used for, and in the other fight scenes, things like take her out, then that's it. Otherwise, still a pretty cool looking figure, but utterly useless when it comes to like actual stop motion or whatever.
X-Men, go!
Cyclops is not an action figure at all, and he's my longest time figure. I have no idea where I got him or when I got him. I had him alongside a Magneto figure. They're really not figures, they're like statues or whatever. So he's literally just stuck in that pose, like with you can't do anything else with that. He's literally just stuck like that. So I can't do anything with him. He's just literally, he stands there, he talks. When it comes to action scenes, you just have him shoot his optic blasts and maybe do an occasional one punch or drop kick. He did not do any drop kicks during this film. Missed opportunity. But then how the hell would I have made that work without seeing my goddamn hands? Like it did any better, because you still saw my hands on occasion.
Plan B, we fight our way through. Now we're talking.
But yeah, he was probably the... He can't stand by himself because he's got like a stupid little tube thing underneath his feet, so like you try and make him stand, he just falls down, so he can't stand at all. Probably the most difficult figure to work with because he doesn't move at all. He's like the Vulture figure, only you could kind of move his arms a little bit, but not really. So yeah, if I ever make a new X-Men movie, I'm going to have to get an actual Cyclops action figure and an actual Storm figure and maybe an actual Thunderbird figure with actual articulation.
Sabretooth! Hello, Runt.
Sabretooth he's an interesting figure because I think it's from a certain line where you could turn your Marvel superheroes, maybe just X-Men figures, into animals, and him being a saber-toothed tiger. I mean, the articulation on him was more than Storm or Cyclops, and maybe just about the same as Thunderbird to an extent. For action scenes for him, it's slightly difficult as well because his arms literally, you can't bend them or anything. You fold them out and like you can't move his head either. But when he's in a Sabretooth form, you still don't have that much articulation, but he does look slightly cool, even though it's a pretty stupid gimmick. Especially when you see him in the film and like, okay, he looks odd and he's moving very odd. I wonder why. That when you see him start to transform into a saber-toothed tiger, it's like, oh, I'm pretty sure they could have done it better, but hey, it is what it is, and it's the only saber-toothed figure I could actually find. So he was the most familiar villain to the X-Men, so I had to use him. I guess the final worst figure to use was the figure I was definitely going to use no matter what, because I wanted to use it for something, because even though it didn't do anything, it did look very interesting and all that, and kind of cool. And Persephone Chambers, that's not her real name. She's that girl from Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. I forget her name. Again, can't do anything. She's just another statue, just sitting there on a little chair and all that. But she does look like a mad scientist thing, and I really wanted to put her in an X-Men film. And this will probably be the first and only time that you see her anywhere related to X-Men. The special effects of the film, believe it or not, seeing that I don't have much of a big budget or whatever, or any budget or connections to these very cool software to make your films really cool and all that, especially if you're action films or stop motion, I had to originally I was just going to resort to using Microsoft Paint, but then I found on my laptop Microsoft Paint 3D, so I went to use that for my effects, and it really was just mainly only used for the robot's laser gun, which was used maybe twice or whatever to animate those movements, and used for the majority of the time for Cyclops' optic blasts, which I'm no artist, so the lines are not perfect or whatever, but I literally also had to play stop motion with the special effects and all that, not just with the putting the photographs together. I literally had to sync up the same photograph with a different point and where the laser would be at that point. When you get to actually doing that for a long while, especially if you want to get into animation or stop motion, that can take a lot of time. Not a huge amount of time, because it doesn't have to be on screen for that long. You can literally make it look like you can put one point here and then go to this point here, and then when you edit it together, it looks like it's moving pretty normally. There are some points in the film where I forgot to animate the laser point. or forgot to add a smoke effect, because Wolverine, when he got shot by the robot laser gun, he was supposed to have smoke coming out of him, and I did animate them, but I forgot to put it in the finished product, and at some point I think I also forgot to actually put the smoke effect on him and all that. I also used Microsoft 3D Paint for the fog effect for Storm when they're trying to hide from the saber-toothed tiger, and whenever Storm's about to use any powers and you see a close-up of her face and her eyes go white, that was also 3D Paint. I think I may have used the wrong type of paint for Cyclops when he's shooting his optic blasts, because it has a weird underlying thing or whatever. So definitely going to change that up at some point when I get to use Cyclops again for another stop motion project. And as for the rest of the effects that were not using Microsoft Paint, they were just GIFs online that I took and used, like the explosions that would go off, like when the X-ray is hit by a missile, or when the whole lab is exploding, or when also with the fire effect as well. That's mostly when the whole lab is exploding. There's a big, painstakingly like off-looking fire effect, as well as the explosion effects, and the lightning strikes. That's what they use. It's just a GIF of that, just like in and out, in and out. And the sound effects were borrowed from YouTube. A lot of sound effects were taken off YouTube for like running effects, walking effects, or just playing up punches or something like that. As you can tell, very low budget and really cheap effects. But hey, when you're starting out with your first full-on stop motion anything, and you're trying to use those actual things that the characters do, or if you actually want an actual explosion to appear, you're going to have to start out that way until you actually get good with actual special effects. So everybody has to start somewhere. This is X-Men New Evolution, Scene 1, first line for Wolverine. Okay, here we go. When it came time for voice acting, I did the voice for Wolverine, Cyclops, Sabretooth, and Thunderbird, and one robot.
Intruder alert! Intruder alert! Mutant signatures located.
I was possibly going to have someone stand in to do the voice for X-23, maybe Storm, and maybe Professor Veronica Chambers, but the person I asked couldn't sub in because they were too busy. So I ended up doing all the voices, which I wasn't necessarily worried about, because ever since, if you go back and watch Spider-Man the New Spider-Clone, I do the voice for everyone in that film too, and I also do the voice for Mary Jane, and oh wow, am I glad that I finally figured out, oh my god, I can actually use editing to my advantage. So when it came time to do the female voices, I could literally just maybe speak in a slightly higher pitch, and then when it comes to editing, bump up the pitch a bit higher, and then boom, bada boom, you've got yourself a female voice. It's not a perfect thing, but hey, at least it's slightly different than the rest. The stupid thing that I did though, when it came to the voice of Wolverine, is that I did his first. I think it's because he had the most lines out of everybody, and I just wanted to get his ones out of the way. Oh my god, his voice nearly killed me.
How far are we from the destination, bub? Alright, bub, how far are we from the destination?
I can do this, come on! Because he's kind of a very... He's not too deep, but he's kind of in the middle, like,
Hey, bub. What the hell did you do?
like, it fucks with your throat and all that, especially if you don't do the proper warm-ups, which I didn't. I didn't do the proper warm-ups, and that nearly coughed up a lung or whatever, or nearly killed my throat altogether, or got hiccups because of the breaths I didn't take.
I'm gonna cut your goddamn head off! See if that works!
Oh, easy. Easy. Yeah, easy. Surprisingly though, when it came time to do Sabretooth's voice, his was actually easier to do because his was actually just full on deep. And when it came, for the inspiration for the voices anyway, for Wolverine it was kind of a mixture between the X-Men 90s cartoon series and X-Men Evolution, kind of a mixture of those voices. And for Sabretooth it was just straight up X-Men Evolution, just a very deep voice. Because it's a good mixture of threatening and I don't know, threatening and something else. I don't know. I can't think of the word right now. For Cyclops, it's just my normal voice, kind of inspired maybe by X-Men Evolution Cyclops and maybe Wolverine and the X-Men. Oh yeah, he's also inspiration for Wolverine as well. Maybe not more so, but yeah, because I cannot be that guy. I can't. He's a legend. I can't be Steve Blum. When it came time to do the voice for, it's a funny thing. The voice between Cyclops and Thunderbird isn't much of a difference. It's a slight one. It's a slight one. Cyclops' voice is a higher pitch, slightly. Thunderbird is kind of the voice I'm doing right now, or maybe just a bit lower. So those voices were easier to do. Probably should have started out with them and then worked my way up. Or if I was going to do all the lines that Wolverine had because he had the most, should have done some vocal warm-up. So if you walk away from anything with this, always do some vocal warm-ups before you do anything to do with voice acting or singing, you know, because those things kind of fall into one. And then when it finally came time to do voices for the female characters, I just literally nearly spoke in my normal voice, maybe slightly higher, and then I just let the editing of the pitch take its course. Ah! Storm! Help me! I spat on the script. Oh, gross. I think the voice that I think worked out very well is the robot voice. I don't know why, it just did. It's a very cool robotic sounding voice that I'm very surprised I managed to get right during the editing process. But yeah, voice acting, after doing it all, like, it's not that bad then, but next time hopefully there'll be an actual voice cast and not just me doing all the voices. I also I'm kind of kicking myself as well because for Wolverine I actually got the grunts and him being hit or doing the actual punching sounds down. Same thing with Sabretooth and a bit of Thunderbird, but I'm kind of kicking myself I didn't do it all for all the characters or whatever. For Storm and X-23, when they're doing the punching or getting hit, I'm actually using a sound gallery from Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fatal 2 Worlds, because they were both in that game, and it was probably easier to do it that way than me just trying to actually getting them getting hurt or throwing a punch or jumping or whatever, because it wouldn't sound convincing. It wouldn't sound like a female voice. It would just sound like me trying to do a female thing. And again, that did not work out well last time, and editing can only do so much. So I just did that. So if you hear her actually sounding like X-23, that's because that's literally X-23 just taken off the game.
You smell that too?
Yeah, something's coming.
To touch on the story a little bit, it's a simple story. It's nothing new. It's like nothing too groundbreaking. It's probably the most average, least interesting X-Men story that you could basically tell. It's no Days of Future Past. It's no Age of Apocalypse. It's no like, oh, Magneto's attacking the city. The X-Men have to go stop him, or the Sentinels are trying to wipe out all mutants, and the X-Men have to try and stop Trask and his workers from creating any more. It's just the X-Men crash land in a forest, and they literally just have to try and survive whatever's out there. Killer robots and old friends. if I actually found the Magneto figure, I probably would have had him be the main villain of the film, and probably would have found a way to get the Professor character involved. And when I bought the Sabretooth figure, I probably would have had him be a lackey of Magneto more than just a lackey of the Professor.
Why would you bring me this girl? I wanted Weapon X.
I have a feeling though, if I managed to find any other X-Men action figures, I probably would have still tried to tell the story anyway, because I have a thing like when the story's stuck in my head, and I just have to get it out. I have to get the story out and just see how it goes. Seeing that I didn't find any other X-Men figures, it still played out this way. But when it comes to actually making a new X-Men stop motion movie, I'm hoping that the cast will be bigger and will actually have the actual X-Men characters in the film. It's not just limited to the main trinity that everybody knows and some rando that you've seen pictures of but literally know nothing about and forgot even existed. And as for the way of villains, Professor Veronica Chambers is a pretty standard mad scientist character that was a perfect one-off villain that the X-Men could fight. And Sabretooth, actually, if I never had got Sabretooth, she would be the main villain, and literally after beating her, that would be it and all that. So Sabretooth definitely brought definitely a sense of familiarity to the X-Men franchise, and kind of more stakes and more story opportunities for some of the characters, like the character of Wolverine, to have someone he knows fully and has a history with, and to bounce off of and actually have more of a conflict with than just this random chick on a chair who knows about his Weapon X days and all that.
I can't lose anyone else. We won't. Besides, us X-Men are too stubborn to stay dead.
I kind of feel like this documentary or making of has kind of been all over the place, probably more so than Spider-Man the New Spider-Clone. Kind of just sitting here rambling, just like, oh, there's an interesting fact or whatever, or just some other things or whatever. Because I haven't written any of this stuff down. It's just what's on the top of my head and what I feel like I should probably talk about or mention. I've been trying to get this done for a long while. This documentary, not the movie. The movie's finally out. Glad it's finally out. Just want to finish everything up with this. Finish off a making of and just tell you some cool tidbits or whatever. I don't even know if I got everything down. I don't want this to be like an hour-long thing. It's basically a half-an-hour documentary right now, unless I added something or whatever. But as for like the first ever stop-motion film, I think it's a pretty decent one. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement for the stop motion, to make it more smoother, to make the more interesting actions and more interesting fight scenes, and maybe have them last a bit longer and be kind of more eye-catching and all that. There are some shots in this I'm proud as all hell that it looked so cool. Like there's this one shot where Wolverine is walking towards the bit of the waterfall, and it's so seamless that it actually looks like he's properly walking. That's like my most favorite part of the entire film. As for best fight scenes of the film, I think the highlight for me would probably be the robot fight to Welcome to the Jungle, which the music choice, by the way, there's definitely a lot of X-Men themes from movies and TV shows in here, and a couple of original songs, copyright free and all that.
She's just
That
why? From what you said,
that sounded really cool and all that. I think my favorite theme of the entire movie is the end credits X-Men Apocalypse theme, where it's the standard X2 X-Men United theme, which you hear throughout the main X-Men films if you're a huge fan of those movies, and you're very familiar with that theme. That's the theme you think X-Men when it comes to movies. And it just sounds so cool. I think the X-Men Apocalypse theme, even if the movie's not good, I think its theme sounds awesome. I think I would dare even say it sounds better than the original. I don't know why. But the Welcome to the Jungle theme also, I showed my brother that and he was like, that's a bit on the nose, and I'm like, I know, but it does sound pretty cool and all that. But that whole fight scene is probably my favorite fight out of the entire film. Maybe Sabretooth fight with second Sabretooth fight is possibly my second favorite, I think, because I don't know, it does look cool. There's some shots that are like, oh, that actually looks like an actual cool fight scene moment, and not just a derpy moment, which there's a couple derpy moments, but otherwise I'm still proud of the movie that I made. I can't wait to go ahead and make another stop motion film and learn from the experiences on this film, and have it not take 2.5 years. I would absolutely hate it if it took 2.5 years again. But hopefully I walk away with a lot more experience and definitely bigger ideas on how I would do another stop motion film, which I don't know it was going to be for a long while, because I really want to get back to regular uploads again for my YouTube. Yeah, it's been a fun experience because I've had fun. It's been a fun thing doing the film and all that, and finally getting it out there for everybody to see and talk about and having support. I'm surprised that a lot of you actually sat through all 45 minutes and 11 seconds of the film all the way through and all that. I really appreciate it. Here's hoping that the next X-Men film is cool, or the next stop motion movie altogether is cool.
And that's a wrap.
You smell that too? Was that you? I know for a fact it wasn't me. Psych! Was that you? Or was it Thunderbird? Or is Kurt around here? He's always been a prankster. If Chuck were here, he would know. He could just read their minds and boom, found them. You smell that too? Smells like bullshit.
Dead on impact. I feel like I can only do the 90s Storm voice, but it's so bad. It's not even good.
Let's move out, team. Alright, move out.
You see that? You ain't gonna see that.